talking about culture, company culture of Netflix. You were saying so many cool things about it that make me jealous. Do you want to go back to that subject before we talk about other things, since we were talking about this last?
Sure. Yeah, as we were discussing, I love the culture, and I don't know how I survive in another company after Netflix. You know, I always think about it. Like, I always look for companies that say, okay, is this something I can go and join in the future? How the culture look like? I don't know if you saw the Netflix Patty McCord was the HR partner who actually bring in the culture and who actually introduced this sort of culture to Netflix way in, I think, 2007, if I'm not wrong, or 2008. And she actually wrote a book on the culture. And what's good about the culture is constantly evolving. So it's not like we have a set of rules and, you know, we just follow that. It is constantly evolving. And it's, you know, one of the main themes. We have many themes. If you're interested, there is actually search Netflix culture. You go to the culture deck online and
tell me a little bit about these themes. What do you mean by themes?
So there are actually values, or let me say values or themes of culture that, you know, a couple of it that really stands out to me as we were discussing. One of it is freedom and responsibility. So you are free to, you know, do whatever you want, pick any working hours you like, you know, pick any tools you want to work at. So you want Jira, go with Jira. You like Trello, go with Trello. You know, you're not bound to one way of doing things. That's why when people come to Netflix, it's so funny, and they ask me, okay, what are the tools you use? And I say, okay, it depends on what project, it depends on what teams, it depends on who's working on it, because it's all free. You can pick whatever tool you wish you desire. And on the other side of the freedom is always the responsibility part, that, okay, if I want a tool which, you know, which costs like, I don't know, $10,000, and then I can do my project with it. Is this really needed? What benefits does it have for the company? What benefits does it have for my performance? And then making the judgment is so crucial in our culture, having good judgments. So you will be able to assess every decision you make and have good reasons to make that decision.
Total. But as long as you have good reasons, you can make that choice and the company supports you. That's awesome.
Totally.
Cool. Yeah. So we're talking about these, like, you know, crazy chairs that, like, you can go ahead and buy a crazy chair if you want, you know, if it's justified. That's cool.
True. Yeah. It's working from home. And, you know, the company told us you can buy anything that you like for your work. First of all, freedom and responsibility. Buy something that you use for work. Don't buy a sofa for your
go buy a car that you know.
Correct. So buy something that you use for work. And we were talking about the chair, because I'm in need of a good chair. I never work from home, and I have this stool that I used to sit on. And now I realize this stool doesn't work for long hours. And I was looking at the chairs, you know, you can go buy a chair which is $5,000. There's like Ehrman Miller chairs which is like $2,000. And then I was looking, okay, if I want to pay for it, will I buy it? And the answer was no, I won't buy this chair if I personally was responsible for my money. So then I picked one which makes sense for me, you know. So it was around $700. It has a lot of ergonomic features, almost the same as the Ehrman Miller chair, which had all those, you know, back support, lumbar support, all that.
I'm jealous. Yeah, I want to see what it looks like. Maybe I get one too.
Yeah, it's actually called Autonomous AI. If you're interested, they have very reasonable pricing, and the chair is amazing. A lot of my colleagues also purchased their chairs, which is really good and reasonable pricing. But anyway, being able to make that judgment, you know, how does this benefit the company and benefit me? And do I do this if I have the money? You know, if it was my own money, will I be able to do that?
Totally. That's the responsibility part. That makes a lot of sense.
That's the responsibility part, and that's a judgment call that you make for a lot of things during everyday work. You know, it can be, you know, chair is a simple example, but when it's come to the work, actually it's become more complex when you're making call for features, for customer experience, you know, for, should we push this feature to production today? What's the impact? Then it's become more complex, and you need to be able to assess the situation, see the benefits, cost benefit analysis of it, and see, okay, will I proceed or not? Because then in our culture, it's not like that your manager tell you, okay, go, or I give you the funds up, you go. You are the one who's making the call, and
Right.
you are the one who are responsible for your feature area.
Totally. That's so cool. So tell me a little bit about what does a workday look like before the pandemic, of course. At work at Netflix, what was a day look like starting from morning?
I miss the office, definitely. Oh, don't tell me, remind me of before the
I'm
pandemic.
sorry.
So I usually reach the office 10 o'clock. That's my time. So some people come 7, some people come 9, some people come 10, some people come 11. It depends on the commute and like how you want to bypass the traffic.
Oh, yeah.
We do used to have shuttles. So we save work, not drive. It's one of the culture themes. So we do have Uber on Netflix if you want to come to office and you don't want to drive. So we discourage people to really driving to office, use the shuttles or use the Uber, which is it's on Netflix account, so you can use it to office and back. But I live nearby. It's 15 minutes drive from my home to office. I just reach there 10 a.m., get to my desk, fill my water bottle. I have this huge water bottle, I think 2-gallon one in the office that every day I finish one.
That's healthy. That's good.
That's one of my daily goals. So the first thing in the morning, I fill the water bottle, I put it on my desk, and I used to open my calendar.
Or what does it look like? Is it? Okay.
You want to see my desk? Actually, I can show you.
Sure. Yeah.
I actually can go to office right now. I'll take you there.
Yeah, sounds good.
1 second.
Let me see. Oh, there.
Here we go. So now we're at Netflix office.
Now I see what you mean. You can take me to the office. Now I thought you were totally
This is the
joking.
desk.
There you go.
Yeah, I live close to the window. It's a really nice view outside. We have this huge balcony. Los Gatos looks by the Los Gatos Mountains, and behind us there is a creek and the trail which goes to Los Gatos Lake. Very beautiful place to work. Very quiet office. We are actually opposite to companies like Facebook. If you go to Facebook, you need these. Otherwise, you won't be able to work.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
I was there a couple of times, and I was asking people, oh my God, I would go nuts if I work here because there's a lot of noise going around. But we have an open space, but it's very quiet. I remember I use mechanical keyboards. If you see my desk, I have one.
I do see that. There's quite a bit of travel. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I type, I think everyone to the other side of office can hear my keyboard typing. So that quiet is the level. So it's very quiet zone, very relaxing office. Yeah, I get my water bottle. I don't know if you see it on my desk right now.
I see a cup on the right-hand side, and I see some action figures or dolls. I see a Bose noise-canceling headphone. Yeah, but I don't see the water bottle.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I think I lost you for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, this is my desk. I will get my water bottle. I come sit here. I have a lot of little dolls on my desk. I am a fan of, women characters, advocates of women. I join a lot of women in tech groups. So a lot of women characters on my desk.
Awesome. Yeah, I noticed. I was checking out your LinkedIn page. I noticed. That's really cool.
So yeah, after getting my water bottle filled, I come and look my calendar, and then I do have a notebook for my everyday work. So basically, I fill in what's my priorities a day before, and then I just open and look at it. For example, this is like a couple of days, and then I look at my priorities and tasks and things I need to follow up. And then I start to see, okay, I get a small task done when I reach. And then after that, I will grab my coffee cup. We have a lot of espresso machines, so you can get coffee, latte, whatever you desire. So I go make a latte in the morning. I'm a coffeeholic. I love coffee and code all the time.
Cool.
And then I come back to my desk. Usually some days are full of filled with meetings. So I am hardly at my desks. I guess I have 1 or 2 days, if I'm very lucky, in the week that I have no meetings. And then those
That's
days
nice.
I love it because I can just focus on coding and be at my desk all the time.
So you're one of those types who like to put those headphones on and stare at your screen, go deep and work on your code and, finish it up. Just be done with it, right? Or
Yeah. I mean, as engineers, I think we all need that. And I see that all the companies, we have all of these meetings that coming and filled, I can say 80% of my time is filled with meetings. And if I don't have that one quiet day that I can put my heads down and work, nothing gets done.
yeah.
So we need some time to also build the feature and, code it out. And yeah, I have like maybe 1 or if I'm lucky 2 days a week to do that.
That's so cool. And I'm assuming that most of you guys use MacBook Pros at Netflix?
Yeah, it's totally up to you.
Mm.
You can pick what you want. So there are a couple of options for laptops. We have like Windows. We also have the Chromebooks, and we do have the MacBooks. And you can
Depends on
have
the
multiple laptops. I do have like 3. So I have a Chromebook and I have 2 MacBooks. But you can have multiple because sometimes you test on different OSs. We need also phones. So we do have a phone lab that we have all the devices in there that you can test on it. But sometimes you have to manually test your features, which is not yet out there. So you can request anything, any phone or any laptop that you want to work with.
That's cool. We're kind of naturally, our conversation is kind of naturally going in that direction. I wanted to ask you, what does a UI engineer do? And I apologize because when I contacted you, I said UI designer. And I, as a lame person, I don't know much about the difference. So tell me a little bit about the difference between UI engineer and UI designer. What's the difference?
Okay, let me tell you about the car engineer and a car designer.
Okay.
or a dress designer and someone who actually sees the dress. There is someone who designs the dress and says, hey, this is how I actually look like. This is the color. These are the, accents and everything that you have to use on the dress. And there is someone else who actually sews the dress, So that's kind of an analogy.
A person who sews, actually makes the thing.
Exactly. So I work with a lot of designers in Netflix. We have our own design teams and we work very closely. So it's not like the designer goes and designs something and come back and say, hey, build this. It's just all the time it's a conversation and collaboration. The designer is in the process of making and it's shared with me. I constantly put feedback and comments, say, hey, these things that you design makes me maybe 10 days to build, but if you design it this way, it makes me 2 days to build. Then we say, okay, what's the project goal? We want to be in the market, how fast we want to be in the market. And then we work with product, ask the product, hey, we have a 10-day solution, we have a 2-day solution, which one you want? And sometimes like, oh, go with the 10 days, we don't care when we get there. And sometimes like, hey, pick the 2 days because we want to be there as fast as possible. So it's always a conversation and a collaboration between us. And I as a UI engineer know how to design too, but my job doesn't do that right now. And I can say a lot of UI engineers know how to design too. I'm mostly a software engineer. I work on front end and also I work on some back end stuff too.
How do you know, how do you learn how to design and how do you learn how to build? I understood the difference, but I'm sure that there's some official courses for learning. How do we learn to design a page, for example, user-friendly page?
Yeah, so there's a lot of courses out there you can use. Udemy has a lot of design courses, or Coursera, or Udacity. Nowadays, everything is online. I wish that it was like this 10 years ago when I went to school. And I
YouTube
didn't need
University.
to go to school. Yeah, I took
what they say.
university and graduate school and all that, but now it's everywhere. And we are, I think, living in an age that we are so lucky that information is available. If you want to be a designer, there is a lot of courses out there. So you pick one. There are tools that designers use. Sketch is one of it. We use a Sketch a lot at Netflix. Or if you've heard about Photoshop, I think a lot of
Oh
people
yeah.
heard about it. So they use tools to actually build things, build like pages. And it's not that easy, because when I started learning design, I was telling the designer, oh my God, I never know this is so much, effort goes to even like having a button, designing a button.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you use those tools, which consists of shapes and colors. So you use the shapes and colors and turn them into different things like logos, buttons, how the page look like.
Got it. So that's just the very front end, how things look like on the face of the page. Now let's get to the UI engineer part of it. So how does that work? Like, what does a UI engineer do?
So imagine you want to build a page which has a login form and you log into Netflix, right? So it's basically 2 inputs and you have a button in a most simple way. And then when you click on the button, something happens, right? The button probably checks your username and checks your password. And then after that, it processes something, make sure both of these are correct and legitimate username and password. We do a lot of different things when you use a login, but this is like a simplest form of login. And it allows you redirects you basically to a home page, as an example. So I am going in, putting in those pieces of code that does that. So one piece is building actually that form in HTML, the inputs, the button, the background, and all of that. And then connect that form to some sort of a logic in JavaScript, which takes that username and takes that password whenever the button is clicked, and requests an API call to some backend service. And that backend service, sometimes I write that too. So I write that service. We have microservices. We have tons of services. So we use a backend service that requests another call to some sort of couple of service or one services, which does the job of authenticating a user and gets the response back. And imagine the response is a success. We allow the user to log in. And if it's error, then we handle those errors. But if the username is wrong, what if the password is wrong? But if user forgets the username or the password, then we need another page for them to go in and reset that password. So all of those stuff, it's not only the look when it comes to a UI engineer, it's a logic. It's thinking beyond the look. And it's thinking about the error cases. So the best scenarios, the worst scenarios, all the edge cases. What if the user tries to log in with someone else's account? Do we know if this is the legit user? If the user is in the same location, is it a different location now the user is trying to log in? So a lot of things if it's actual user, is it a bot? Is it an automated bot trying to hack into an account? So a lot of things comes to play, as a UI engineer to think around the edge cases, to think around the error cases. It's not just this, the happy path. And sometimes I work with the designer and say, hey, this is an error case. And how do we now show the user the error? Because that's a designer part of the thing. What do we tell the user? We also have a team of writers who actually writes those statements. And we pay a lot of attention to writing to make sure that the sentence is well structured and it's not offensive, it's inclusive, all that in mind when we even write a piece of sentence.
What is their profession? Those people who write the content? What?
Yeah, they're writers.
Okay. Huh, yeah. Interesting. I never thought that you need writers just for that content. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of details goes into, a small Netflix feature. We see something as small, we think, hey, it's like easy to build, but there's a lot of attention and details. We also pay attention to accessibility. What if our user is an accessible user, which can't use a keyboard and a mouse? How the user interacts with that design then? As a UI engineer, I need to be able to enable that interaction for users who are accessible to. Is the design inclusive enough? Thinking about all of these things is, in a small feature, there's a lot of point of attention that goes to it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you guys building a product for millions and millions of users, right? From all backgrounds, all languages, and man, just to make that thing work for everybody. Yeah, that's a tough task. Huh. Interesting. So how do you guys know, and I don't mean just for Netflix, as a UI engineer, how do you guys know how the interaction goes with the user? Like, how do you guys know that there's some difficulty with the product? The user wants to do something and they have a lot of hard time doing it. How do you guys notice that?
Mm-hmm. So I guess there are multiple ways of knowing. There's a traditional way of customer support where user picks up the phone and call the customer support, say, hey,
Probably an
I don't
angry
know.
customer yelling.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know how to use this, help me figure it out. And then the customer support will reach out to engineering teams and say, hey, we get a lot of user inquiries on this feature, means this new feature is not usable. So that's one tunnel. The other tunnel that a lot of companies use, including Netflix, is an A/B testing. So when we actually, we have a feature and we have a change on the website, we do an A/B test. And I don't know if you're familiar, we have like,
I heard, I'm
break
not
the group.
super familiar.
The simple explanation, you break all the users to two groups, the group A and group B. And group A gonna have the old experience and the group B gonna have the new experience. And then you will compare to see like how many people click that new button in the new group. And then you compare the results between the two groups. It's like a most simple way, but nowadays it's very complicated. And a lot of companies using A/B testing, I can say all the FANG companies leverage that to understand how users react to something new and how users react to a new feature. And there are metrics. And I can say, like, for most of the companies, revenues is a metric, right? And how we grow revenue is what we want from users, right? The more users we get, the more revenue the company has. And happiness of users, I can say for Netflix is how much time users watching, right? How happy they are. So when they increase this sort of the metrics that the companies have, it can be different sort of metrics, can be company revenue, it can be the measuring for how happy the users are. And those increase in the metrics means that that new feature is successful. Sometimes does not have an impact on anything. It means the feature is neutral. So user really doesn't care. And if it's negative, then means the feature is actually hurting something or the user doesn't know how to use it.
So as a UI engineer, you guys look at those metrics and kind of try to, or that's more of a UI designer kind of work?
So we actually work with data engineers on all the projects. They're the ones who actually take the data, analyze it, and then come back to us. So I can say every project consists of a lot of people from different teams. We have data engineer, we have data analyzers, we have data scientists, we have product people, we have designers. Sometimes we have multiple teams involved for different features, different backend services teams that are involved. And then the data engineers are the one actually look into the data and build, visualizations that understandable for all the stakeholders on the project. Translate that to the shapes or visualizations, and then say, hey, this is how this new feature is till now. And if it's positive, we move forward. If it's negative, then we decide to like, hey, let's turn it off, or let's figure out how to solve it. Let's change it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Now I know a lot more about you being a UI engineer. What is a career? Like, say, a software engineer with a bachelor's in software wants to become a UI engineer, right? What should they do? Like, they have to go get a master's, or a software engineer can directly, learn some material online and apply for jobs in UI engineering?
What I see in the industry is there are people who have PhDs, but they can't code. And there are people who went to a 6-month code camp and they code 10 times better. So I say it doesn't matter how you learn it. What matters is how much do you know and how well you can code. If you can learn in a boot camp, go for it. If you are a person who needs a degree, go for it. It really depends on your goals, how you want to learn something. And also there is a lot of financial aspects. Right now, going to school is really costly. It's always been very costly.
Time and money. Yeah.
Time and money, true. And I see a lot of people going to boot camps, people without a degree, that they were perfect in coding and they were really good. And I saw people with degrees from best universities, which they weren't good. So I can't say there is a one path and you have to go get a degree. What I can say is that however you want to learn it the best, and really go deep into the topics you're learning. Try to figure out in and out of the language, and focus in one area and build an expertise, because software engineering is so vast. There's a lot of topics. Focus in one part of the application and become an expert in it. And after you've done that, then try to build surface knowledge in other parts. So what we call it as a T-shaped engineer. I don't know if you heard about a T-shaped engineer. It means someone who has an expertise and depth of knowledge, which is the base of the T, and has the breadth of the knowledge in a lot of other topics. But I can say it's important for a software engineer. As a UI engineer, you need to know backend. So you need to know how backend works. You need to know networking, how a request goes all the way to the backend and come back, because that will give you more knowledge. And, you can optimize things better on the UI, understanding what happens to this request when it leaves the UI side. So those things are really important to build that breadth of knowledge in different areas, even softer skills. And I'm an advocate for softer skills. As an engineer, you need to know how to communicate with people, how to collaborate with people, how to manage your project, how to manage yourself, in the first place, how to deal with conflicts. So softer skills, super important. That would be on the top of the T. And also psychology. I can say as an engineer and as a human being, you need to understand psychology, and that will help you later on in your career.
Absolutely. I can tell. Yeah. I mean, just knowing what the person wants, how they feel, makes a huge difference. Absolutely. All right. So can you tell us a little bit about a job interview, a technical interview, let's say, for a UI engineer? Is it kind of like a traditional software developer with a lot of, algorithm questions and, give them a tough question and expect them to solve the problem in front of 10 pairs of eyes on a whiteboard without any help? Or it's a little different?
I can say it really depends on the company. So when people come to me and tell me, give me advice, how do I interview? The first thing I say is social engineer the company and see how they ask the questions, because different companies have different interview processes. Some do not have interview processes, and it's different way of going with interviews. There is no one way I say, hey, go study algorithm only or go study the UI only.
So combination if you want to both depending on a company.
Yeah, for example, if you want to go for Google, it's obvious that Google is going to ask you a lot of hard algorithmic questions. And if your goal is to hire at Google, you want to master algorithms. But if your goal is hire in Facebook, you want to do a balance, because they don't ask a lot of algorithms, but also not a lot of UI. They have a balance, so they ask you both UI and both algorithms. It really depends on the company. It really depends on what they do. The best way is to ask your recruiter and say, what do I need to prepare? How the interview look like in this company? And they always tell you hey, you need to study algorithms, and we don't expect you to study JavaScript for this interview, for example. They're really direct because they want you to get the job.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. I personally really enjoyed this conversation, and I learned a lot about, UI engineering. Is there anything else that you want to talk about for people who are looking for jobs in this field? I'm sure that they'll find it valuable.
I guess to get a job, as I mentioned, try to understand where you are working and try to understand the company culture. Because what's important is not the company name only. There are a lot of companies that have huge names, but when you go in there, you are not happy because the culture is exhausting. It's overworking, you know, and you really need to understand what's your goals are. Is it you just want the company name in your resume and you just want to go there for like a year and leave, or you want a place you actually enjoy your day-to-day life? For me, I want a place that I enjoy my day-to-day life. So for me, it was important to really understand where I'm going. So I always research the company. I always go there even before interview. I ask the recruiter, can I come over? You know, before the pandemic, I used to go to the office and see the people there and like have an informal chat with my hiring manager. Because for me, it's important. My goal is like to enjoy my day-to-day work. I want to be productive. I want to be happy. I want to reach my goals, and I want that environment to be productive. So before Netflix, I used to work in a company called My Best. It was a very small company, but the culture was amazing. I can say it's very close to Netflix. It was this beautiful, small, amazing culture company. People were so selfless, so helpful, you know, so supportive. And also the company, the managers were so supportive. And I grown a lot in that environment because it was this healthy environment that you can learn and grow without thinking about all the negativity, competition, or, you know, someone is getting a promotion. How can I break that person? I see a lot in companies in Bay Area. So it was a small company. The name doesn't ring a bell, but I grown personally a lot there. So again, research the company very well, try to understand your goals of working there. Don't just think about the fame, you know, hey, I work at Google and Amazon and Microsoft or Netflix, you know. That doesn't really matter. That doesn't mean that you're going to grow in your career.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, you know, I wish we could talk more, but I think it's almost, you know, turning into a full hour. I don't want to take too much of your time. I really, really enjoyed, you know, having this conversation with you. And I'm sure that people who are going to watch this video are going to enjoy it as well. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
Bye,
Emin.
Nazanin.
Bye.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
Bye.